So sometimes really meeting with people, taking the time to have a coffee with them, to go see their work really can help you in the future. So it's kind of like, building the foundation, knowing that those deposits are going to pay off in the long term.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of No More Bad Events. And let's be honest, aren't they all exciting? That's why it's another exciting episode. I should probably find a different adjective. I mean, they're all good. An exhilarating episode, an insightful episode. It's a good episode. Let's just all agree on that. And I have a great guest today. Oh, you're in for a treat. Today I'm hanging out with Gianna Gaudini, a total powerhouse in the event planning world. She's here to share some game-changing tips and insights that can turn any event from blah to brilliant. Gianna chats about how important it is to make space for those big, bold ideas, taking a page out of Steve Jobs' playbook, and why we need to step back from the constant hustle in the events industry. We're also talking about the magic of nature and executive retreats and how a bit of greenery can calm and inspire us. I really liked what Gianna had to say about leadership and the importance of empathy and trust when leading event teams, and how setting a positive vibe in meetings can make all the difference. Plus, we discuss how crucial it is to stay calm and open-minded as a leader. We'll also dig into her best-selling book, The Art of Event Planning, pro tips from an industry insider, and learn how she transitioned from a super reactive adrenaline-fueled mindset to a more relaxed, nature-focused one, leading to better creativity and decisions. So get ready to transform your event planning game with tips on building the right team, creating unforgettable experiences, and fostering an awesome mindset. Here's my conversation with someone who I feel is a true trailblazer in our industry, Gianna Gaudini. So I know you worked at Google. You were, I think, the market events lead there. You went on to become the head of events at Airtable, AWS. You worked with SoftBank Vision Fund. So you talk a lot in your book, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you talk about why building the right team is crucial for event planning success. So how do you recommend finding and nurturing good talent?
That's a great question. So I think there's a few things. It definitely depends on what type of event you're planning. And there might be different formulas for creating the right teams for different types of events. But typically, for your standard event, I call it the trifecta, which is like you want your strategist who's going to have the big picture vision, and they're going to help drive the goals, really kind of like tease out the big picture. Like, what's the headline that we're writing about this event? What's the ultimate result that we need to get? And they might also help come up with like really creative ways to approach the problem experientially. Then you need creatives who are going to help flesh that out in creative ways. That could be branding, that could be experiential design, that could be, anything like that, interior design. And then you're going to need the producers, and the producers get shit done, right? They make it happen. So that can be anyone from a content producer to logistics. They can be generalist or specialist producers, but they're the ones that are actually going to drive, the budget, the timeline, and ultimately make sure that the event stays on track and gets delivered. And so typically you want like a blend of those three types on your event. But to answer your question about how it comes to finding the talent, part of my job as a leader is constantly meeting with new people. And it's hard to do because everybody's very busy. It's hard to find time to have those coffees, to network, to go to events, but it's critical, really. You kind of learn that as you mature as an event leader, is half of your success is who you know and who you trust, because then you can tap into that network when you need them. And oftentimes you need people very fast. And if you know their work and you know their unique skill set and you have that tracked and they have trust in you as a leader, you can quickly get an advantage by being able to tap into that talent that you have. And the same thing goes for agency relationships. Often when I meet with agencies or they ask to give me a capabilities presentation, I will also ask, hey, what events are you planning? And can I come attend them? And I find it so much more valuable to actually attend an event and see how they work, what the experience is like as an attendee, than the fluff. Sometimes it's like smoke and mirrors in the agency presentation. And then you get on site and the event is like, oh, it looks beautiful. I've had this happen before where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful, so Insta-worthy. And then the attendee experience was so bad. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would never hire them. It looks beautiful, but they didn't think through any of the attendee comfort or the logistics. It was a mess. So sometimes really meeting with people, taking the time to have a coffee with them, to go see their work, really can help you in the future. So it's kind of like, building the foundation, knowing that those deposits are going to pay off in the long term.
Yeah, and helping to, understand who you're working with. And as you said, being able to see it beyond just their skill set. And I like that idea of having the strategist, the creative, and the producer. So as a lead marketing person, do you need to have the same skills, or is it important for you to have an idea of each of those roles? And would you be able to fill in for one of those roles if you had to, or enough that you can at least help lead them?
Scott, nobody's ever asked me that. And it's such a brilliant question. I think, yes, I learned this lesson when I was still on the agency side before I went in-house at Google. I had a leader once at an agency, and she would make all the producers on her team lead registration on one event so that we would learn the ins and outs of it. And it was miserable. Honestly, I hated it, but it's been so valuable for me because every event has registration, right? So to be able to understand how it works on the back end and what goes into it, the nuances, makes you so much better, once you're leading a person who's running registration. And the same thing is true, I think, when you're a leader, is to have walked in the shoes of everyone that you're leading makes you that much more empathetic, makes you understand kind of the nuances of what needs to happen when and how people need to work together. I know similar leaders in adjacent industries like restaurants who make, servers be a busser or work front of house, back of house, switch off. I just think it's really important to get, and hotels do the same thing, just to get to know what it's like at each service level. And also to be an attendee and see what's it like to be an attendee. And it provides so many insights. So as a leader, it definitely helps to know all the roles. I think at this stage of my career, I'm more of a strategist because I kind of see and orchestrate the whole big picture. But then again, I am sometimes, what usually happens with clients is I will come in and pull together a strategy for them or audit their event and make recommendations. And sometimes they'll say, this is so great, but can you come in and now run the whole thing for us? And if I have the bandwidth, sometimes I will do that and come in and executive produce it as well. I still really enjoy that.
Yeah. And as a strategist, you're looking at always the big picture. And I'm sure it's very challenging for you if you are on site because you have a sense of what else is going on to maybe move into another lane and help out there. I mean, you're not going to let anything go by, even though you have the strategy side, you're going to help out in the creative, you're going to help out in the production. And that's probably why you decided to write your book. Your book is called The Art of Event Planning, Pro Tips from an Industry Insider. So what do you hope your readers will get out of that, and what inspired you to write it?
Sure. So I think, a couple things inspired me. One, I always appreciated my mentors. There were some mentors in my trajectory that really made a difference in my life. And in fact, I'm having coffee with one of my early mentors next week. So we've stayed in touch for over 20 years. And I also liked mentoring people on my team and outside the industry. And I used to have a lot more time for that until I became a mom. And then your time kind of gets very compressed. And so I wanted to figure out, how can I scale my reach in a way that is meaningful, that's durable. What can I do? And I've always enjoyed writing. My first job actually was I wrote a neighborhood newspaper and ran that for years. And then I had a wine blog called Decanter's Wine Diary. And so, writing's always been a medium that I really enjoy. You feel like there's an output that is enduring. And it was just kind of serendipitous because I was feeling this need. And then I was asked to contribute to a friend of mine's book. And her editor reached out to me and said, wow, I really like your story. I think like I would love to edit a book that you write. Let me know if you're interested. Like I can help you get started. I can help you with an outline. And I remember thinking, I had a 1-year-old at the time. I was like, when am I going to have time to write a book? This is so crazy. And I went on vacation. I took some time to think about it. And I thought, it's always been on my bucket list. Why not? Like, why not do it? If anyone can do it, I can do it. And so I set about writing. And luckily, my kiddo took 2 naps a day at that point. And so weekends were like, I was stuck in the house twice a day anyways. So I was just, when he napped, I would write. And that's kind of what inspired me to do it. And I think the hardest part was deciding how to cool down everything that I wanted to share into what I thought would be a durable piece of work. And I'm surprised that it has been relatively durable. And there's been so much change since I wrote it. I mean, we went through COVID the year after I published the book. So talk about
same here. I wrote a book in 2019, published a book in 2019. And yeah, December, you had June. So you had at least a 6-month or 8-month ramp up, but mine came out in December. And then we get hit by the pandemic, which probably didn't help my book. But with your book, it might have. People probably had some time. I mean, you might not have been addressing at that time the virtual aspects, but you might even had a chapter at that point in that.
I did. I was doing virtual events at Google even before they were a big thing. I still remember like my first virtual event I produced, we thought it was so high tech. And it was very successful. It was back, I think it was in 14 or 15. And we had a C-level summit and decided we wanted to scale this really like intimate experience for our global audience in some ways. We were making such a big investment in these 100 CXOs that were attending this summit. And so we basically leveraged the fact that we had so many C-level customers attending to use them as speakers. Like we built a whole separate stage for them to come and record with us and then stream it while we were having this in-person event. So we thought we were way ahead of our time, and maybe we were, but we were onto something. So yeah, I do talk about technology at the end of my book. I think some of my predictions were spot on. Definitely did not foresee COVID, but I'm surprised like a couple of universities have incorporated my book into their curriculum. So I think it's still resonating with people. Hopefully people are still buying it and reviewing it. So yeah, it's kind of surprising to me, but grateful.
Yeah. So in the writing process, did you discover something when you put it all out? You were looking on, you had this outline, you wrote it out, and you're like, oh, this is the key here. I put it all together. I'm seeing everything. Did anything pop out like that during your writing experience?
Honestly, that was more my editor. She was so helpful in like helping me organize the chapters so that they flowed. It was more of a narrative. And I think that's key to planning events too, is knowing where the arc is, the peak, and then what points you want people to really remember. My husband used to make me mix CDs when we were first dating, and I would make them for him. And he coached me through the appropriate way to make a mix CD, which was, song 6 and 7 had to be like the build up, and then it would kind of fade out. And you could never repeat the same artist. And so but anyways, I love analogies, as you can tell. And so I feel like it's kind of like putting together that, the right cadence to kind of build interest and then have that peak moment that people really like captures people's attention and inspires them to finish or stay through the end. And then you want to leave them on a really positive, inspiring note too. It's very similar to a lot of things in life.
Yeah. Everything events, have to have that, as you said, have to have that arc. In your book, were there any other, I'm sure there were tons of them, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but any key insights or strategies that you believe had significant impact on event professionals, people who've read the book and said, hey, I never even thought of that?
Yeah, I think what people really like the most about my book as compared to other maybe standard, event planning texts is I wrote it after working for Google for 9 years. where I planned some of the most magical events of my career. It was just a magical time for event planning. There was big budgets, there was incredible technology coming out. I was at Google from 2010 to 2019. So it was really kind of like the golden years of events. And I think the chapters that people really loved were my chapters on how to make really memorable events, working in surprise and delight and really creating an engaging environment and experience. When we planned events at Google, we would always say, if this looks like an event that any other brand could do, we need to start over. And so we were so dedicated to being stewards of the Google brand, which is helpful. It's playful, it's giving you a wink and a smile. It's sharp, it's smart. And we were always thinking of ways to surprise and delight. And sometimes it was in big moonshot ways, like skydiving into an event, wearing Google Glass and showing attendees what that looked like to skydive through glass. No easy feat, and lost a lot of sleep over that one. But then it was also, just anticipating attendee needs and showing that you care, or personalizing the experience for people. So I think there's so many different ways to be thoughtful and surprise and delight, but that was the key element to every event I did at Google. It was so key. And I think people really love that. And I think, one of the things that I decided when I was writing this book is I want to make this engaging to read. And so I will teach a lesson and then give an example, because people really want to see, if they can't see it live or demo it hands-on, they want to hear how someone else did it. And at events, customers are the same way. They want to hear other customers sharing how they use the product and were successful, right? Like, people want to know how you did it and the hero story. So I think that's what people shared with me that they really liked, is like all those fun stories that I share and kind of like open the curtain. And of course, Google reviewed and approved all of it. So I'm grateful that they allowed me to share some of our magic.
I've been to a lot of industry events, or even events that I host or keynote at. And surprise and delight has such an amazing impact on people, because you're really hitting them at an emotional level. It's not cerebral. They have some sort of reaction. And you said that a lot of what you were creating at Google had to be on brand. So in your book, you talk about strategies to build brand loyalty and an affinity through events. Is that brand loyalty and affinity for that company event, or that looks different when it's a customer event?
I think it's for both. One of the things that we always did before any event was put together a brief. And I do that to this day. The first thing I do is create a brief for my clients, for myself, put pen to paper to really get, your goals down on paper. And one of the things that I include on my brief is, what do you want attendees to think, do, feel, right? And I think that it's very, very simple and specific. And it helps you just understand like what emotional mood you want to create, and what does that mood drive people to do, and what feeling are they leaving your event with. It can be very different. A sales kickoff might be inspiration or motivation, whereas an executive retreat might be totally different. It might be like happiness, like you want them to associate your brand with like the best experience they ever had. The best marketing is happy customers at the end of the day. It's so true. Like, if someone had the best experience ever, they want to share it. They want to return to you. And so, I think it could be internal, it could be external. It really doesn't matter. People are, at the end of the day, emotionally driven.
And you talk a little bit about the underrated aspects of certain parts of the hospitality process. So how should event professionals prioritize brand building in those areas? Can you give us some examples?
Totally. I think, what's really interesting about events is you have to create the right environment to get people ready to absorb whatever it is that you want them to hear or do. And a lot of people forget that we are emotional creatures, that we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if our basic needs are not met, we cannot do anything else. And so you have to lay the foundation first, thinking through every single point in the attendee journey leading up to the event. That means registration. That means letting people know what to expect in advance. That means priming them. I'm planning a 50th birthday party for my husband right now, and I have some, things planned for it. And I sent out an email to the guests, just priming them for what to expect and what to know about it. And I think people like that. They want to know, they want to prepare, they want to be in the right mindset. The biggest complaint I hear is, I don't know what the agenda is. I don't know what we're going to be doing, who's going to be there. And then people either won't show up or they're going to complain. And then once they get to the event, the registration is a long line and their name isn't there. They're not greeted by someone who's, who knows them or has a smile. So all these little pain points along the way can lead to not a great experience. Whereas if you're anticipating where are the pain points going to be, and then helping to prevent them, to create delight instead, you're going to set the stage for them to really want to listen to what you have to say and pay attention. An example of this was when I was producing Google Cloud Next for the first time. I was lucky to be on the team that was building that event from the ground up, Google's biggest external event. And then I ran it as the executive producer for 3 years. And the first year, we had never done an event that big. I think it was 12,000 people. And we knew there was just going to be a huge line outside the keynote first thing in the morning. And we started brainstorming, what can we do to make this a better experience for people, knowing that there is going to be a line. There's no way to avoid it because people get there early. They want to get into the keynote. And so we hired a local band to come and play. And we also knew people would be cold and hungry. And so we hired, San Francisco is known for its great cold coffee. So we hired different cold coffee vendors to come and hot coffee to people for free. And some local, artisanal donut companies to come and hawk delicious piping hot artisanal donuts. And let me tell you, these attendees had the biggest smiles. They were not expecting that. And it actually really helped us too, because then we didn't have thousands of people hitting our buffets all at the same time, because people already had their coffee and they actually would listen to us and funnel into the keynote room. So sometimes, by eliminating pain points, you get attendees to actually do what you want too. There's win-wins for things. Another time I was planning an event. It was a customer advisory event at Google, and we really wanted people to be engaged. And, we also wanted to give them these devices that had a personal message on them. We wanted them to use the device, but we also wanted to be we wanted them to be engaged and not be on their devices all the time. And so we really thought through every single pain point, every single point of the customer journey. And we made sure that we unpackaged and charged every single device so that people wouldn't feel like they needed to go charge them up. So they had that immediately. We had a concierge desk where we said, if you need someone to walk you through how to use the device, you can go use it. And if you want to check the box for your device so that you can take it home with you later, we can store it for you. And then you can have your device. You don't have to worry about putting the box in your room. You can just use it immediately. And then we took it a step further and we had chargers at all the seats. And this was soft seating, high top seating, and all of them had built-in chargers. It was expensive, but we didn't want people to leave and go back to their rooms for any reason. And then we took it a step further and we had charging cubbies so that during lunch, we recommended to people, hey, take this time to network. This is why you're here. Come talk to experts, talk to each other. We had curated experiences for networking at the lunch. And we said, we can charge and check your device for you. It'll be charging in that cubby. You can come back and get it when you're done. And they did. And so it's knowing what you want people to do and then thinking through the logistics for how to achieve that. And the attendees loved it. They were happy. We were happy. Their needs were met. We got what we wanted out of the experience. Win-win. So it's just, those are a couple of examples, and they're not super complex either. They can be very basic. It's just, anticipating and thinking through that attendee journey in advance.
Exactly. Having that foresight. I mean, that was a great idea to have the charging stations and having the little cubbies so that you kept them there. That's someone who really thought out as you said, the attendee journey. We don't want them to go upstairs. We want them to stay down. And, just speaking to you and getting to know you, you're a very positive person. You're someone who's very engaged and excited in the whole event planning process. And you have a chapter in your book about mindset and how it's important to have a positive mindset that helps to impact success. How can professionals start to cultivate this positive mindset? Is it always coming from the top down? Or are you talking about, hey, even if your leader isn't inspiring you, you need to come in fully engaged and fully excited to be where you're at?
Oh, I love this topic. There's so much to say here. First of all, the most beautiful thing about mindset is that you have total control over it. And I'm teaching that to my 7-year-old right now is like, no matter what's going on outside of you, you have total control of your mental state. And you can choose what experience to have. If stressors are being thrown at you, you can choose to react to them in a stressed out way or a defeatist attitude, or you can think, oh, this is a way to use the tools in my toolkit, or to think creatively outside the box, or to grow through moving through the situation. It's like surfing. You can let the wave take you over, or you can ride the wave. I actually have, I don't know if you can read it behind me, but I have a sign that says, a diamond is a chunk of coal that did well under pressure. And I love that.
Yeah.
With mindset, I think as I matured as a professional, I have moved from being very adrenaline fueled, very like much stay up all night and, be as responsive as possible and like bing, 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 high energy, to realizing that I am at my best. I am my smartest. I am my most creative. I am the best leader when I am rested, when I am not in an adrenaline fueled state, when I'm actually less caffeinated, and when I'm taking the time to ground myself. And I now spend a lot more time in nature instead of going to the gym in the morning and watching the news on the treadmill while checking my phone, which was like my old routine that I thought worked so well. Now I'm off in nature in the morning and I'm taking a break from my device before I attack the day. And often I'm getting these big ideas, while I'm out in nature. And instead of responding to that last email at midnight, I'm saying, you know what, I'm going to sleep on it and then respond in the morning. And in the morning, I'm finding now I have a totally different idea that's going to be so much better than if I had responded with my previous idea. So it's this concept of slowing down to move faster. I'm really trying to share this with people. I'm actually going to send it out in my newsletter next week. Is, oftentimes we get our biggest ideas on vacation. Steve Jobs actually used to get his biggest ideas on vacation. And it's funny because his team has shared this publicly that they actually would start getting all these phone calls from him on vacation, and they would start preparing for that. He'd want to have brainstorm sessions and, have them researching big concepts because he would get all these bigger ideas when he had the space for it and wasn't just in react in the day to day. And so, I think there's a lot that event professionals can do to cultivate that. And some of it is, it's very much a discipline to remove yourself from just the constant responding, reacting. And it's very challenging in this industry because that is, after all, what we need to do with events is drive things forward. And there's always a timeline and a deadline and a million things to do. So there's a discipline to learn how to get things done, but in a different way. So different strategies for that is just even spending 10 minutes a day doing some breath work, or, being in nature, taking an ice bath, being with loved ones. It was actually such a gift to have a child that forced me to time out during the day, like at night. It helped me tremendously professionally because then I had to stop. Otherwise, I would just keep going and going and going. And that pause actually, I think, helped me professionally to learn that, oh, everything still does get done. You can be off your email for an hour and like the world goes on. Things might actually get resolved without you during that hour, and it's okay. So, and I've heard this from a lot of other people too. It's just that learning that you don't have to be hyper responsive and you can still do a really good job as a leader.
Yeah, I think we're all collectively starting to realize that we have to get out of our heads. We need to, get things done, but not think about getting things done. That's where a lot of the chaos comes, in our head. You talked about going out into nature. I know that IMEX Frankfurt, I don't know if you were able to get out there. You'll probably go to IMEX. Yeah, probably go locally to the one in October. But I was just talking to someone about it, and people have been using this more, I think, at events. But have you worked with bringing nature inside to events?
Yeah, no, 100%. I've been doing that for years. I think I wrote about that in my book, actually. It's been proven that people are more inspired, more calm. That's why they have green rooms and they're green. It's very calming. I'm doing a lot of executive retreats right now. And so we bring a lot of nature into the experience. We do a lot of the breakout sessions outside if we can, or the events outside. It just changes people's perspective. It kind of puts people in a different mentality. It's very nostalgic. People think back to nature and often they think of being a kid, because when you're a kid, you're out playing in nature, you're camping, and that nostalgia kind of brings you back to a different state. Again, it's, the emotions. And so, yeah, I've always brought the outside in. I one time brought in fig trees with real figs on them and had people plucking the figs off and then, cooking them. So I do stuff like that all the time just to be playful. But yeah, I could talk for hours on that topic.
I assume with, executive retreats, you got some people that are, have a lot of things on their plate and have a little stress to be able, it's called a retreat, to be able to relax and then to surround them with things like nature and some calmness. And I'm sure you work with, you probably bring in things like, massage and maybe some breath work and probably offer things like yoga and stuff in the morning. So we're going to wrap things up, but any best practices for leading event teams and becoming strategic leaders in event marketing? You're one of the experts. What would your advice be?
I think it's taking time to get to know people and being empathetic, because I think when you lead from a perspective of understanding what the other person is doing, it helps you build trust. And I think event teams are all about trust. People need to trust their leader to perform well. And leaders need to be able to trust their teams. And so being able to understand and have, I think what people say about my leadership style is they feel very safe. They feel like they can go up and share their opinions and they will be welcome. And I try to create that vibe. I start every meeting with, I have everybody take turns sharing a quote at the beginning of the meeting. And it's literally takes 1 minute, but it sets the right tone for the meeting that there is a bigger picture outside all the to-dos. And the tasks is what message does this person want to share with the group today? And it's just a nice way for us to feel like it's kind of like the pre-meal, the family meal before a service at a restaurant. People come together. Sometimes the leadership shares something inspiring. It's just, there's something about setting the tone that allows people to be in a different mindset, more collaborative, see the big picture, get out of that fight or flight mode. And it seems so simple, but it really can make a big difference.
Whether you're an event marketing lead or a CEO of a company, you're a leader and everything sort of flows through you. So someone who has all those qualities of being calm and being open and collaborative, and that it is about, a sense of, as you said, setting a tone. And you can do that right from the beginning, because you can start off on something and the tone is just wrong. And then everything shoots out from that, that vector. And to be able to have everyone on the same page and feeling good and feeling positive is a great way to lead a team. I just want to mention your book again. It's The Art of Event Planning, Pro Tips from an Industry Insider. Go pick it up, because we just got all this great information here, but I know Gianna goes in depth in the book, so definitely pick that up. Gianna, such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. I learned a lot, and I hope people who are listening have learned a lot as well.
Thanks so much for having me, Scott. It was such a pleasure.
That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, professional MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you love what you heard, drop us a review and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.